Redfin stock is performing real well today after the company announced that it would be firing nearly 1,000 of its workers because of, this is how capitalism works. You fire workers, the value of your shares goes up. That's how it happens. Well, the reason why they fired a bunch of their workers is because the housing market has slowed down due to the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates. And that means that a huge portion of Redfin's business model is also getting axed. Now, Redfin missed its third quarter earnings expectations and earlier Wednesday announced that it would lay off employees for a second time this year, eliminating 862 positions or 13% of its workforce. Now, keep in mind that this isn't the first round of layoffs. In June, they had another round of layoffs where they fired about 8% of their workforce. And altogether, with this round of layoffs and the round of layoffs in June, they have cut or reduced 27% of their employees. Okay, now as part of their restructuring, Redfin will follow the lead of the real estate marketplace Zillow, and this is the part that's super relevant, and get out of the high-tech house flipping business known as iBuying, in which companies buy houses for as little as possible, fix them up, and then flip them, ideally for a profit. But the company said it expects to lose at least 22 million on that project this year alone.
Yeah, they'll lose a lot more. Yep.
So good.
So the reason Anna loves it is because institutional investors, including startups like this,
are the worst.
Are buying houses all across the country and driving up prices.
Yep.
So if you're a regular person, this affects you tremendously because when you go to buy a house, especially if you're young, God help you, you got student debt already weighing you down. House prices are through the roof. And so, and now you have to compete with Wall Street and Redfin and all these different things, right? So that's the phenomenon that's been hurting the entire country. Of course, no one on TV talks about it because they're also giant multi-billion-dollar corporations, and a lot of these guys are their advertisers. So they purposely keep this stuff from you, okay? So now, the reason they're in trouble is Redfin had a perfectly good service, so did Zillow, right? You go look up the house prices, and it's a service for, that house is worth this much. I'm going home shopping, I can see the comparative price. It's actually really good, it makes sense, right? But investors want more.
They do,
They
yes.
always want more, okay? So they basically told Redfin, give us some money, Lebowski. So they had to invent a new scheme.
Right.
On top of their perfectly good business, right?
Yeah, and by the way though, that new scheme, which is the iBuying house flipping model, was messed up because think about what Redfin and Zillow also do as you go on their websites and you search for homes that you might want to buy. They're harvesting your data, right?
Yeah.
And they're using that data to their advantage in that whole iBuying scheme as well.
So part of how they do that is they then have all the information and they know how they can lowball you. And now they're the guys who run the company in this article admit that they were doing that.
Yes.
And they feel, he says part of the reason they're stopping the business is because he feels bad. Notice he didn't feel bad when they were making a profit, but now all of a sudden he's found his morals now that they're losing $22 million a year. Okay, so that is important to be very clear about because I'm not buying what he's selling at all in more ways than one. Yeah, go ahead.
Now I want to go to a statement from the CEO, Glenn Kelman. He says this, graphic 4. We plan to keep increasing our share of the market, but that market in 2023, meaning the housing market, is likely to be 30% smaller than it was in 2021. The June layoff was a response to our expectation that we'd sell fewer houses in 2022. This layoff assumes the downturn will last at least through 2023. So if you've been keeping an eye on the housing market, you've probably noticed that depending on where you're looking, home prices have either plateaued or they've already started going down as much as 20%. The Federal Reserve, which continues to raise interest rates, says that it has no plans to stop. They plan on continuing to raise interest rates. And that is obviously slowing down the economy overall. And this is their response to inflation, right? But it's having, I think, the biggest impact on asset bubbles, right?
Yeah.
And the housing market, in my opinion, is a massive asset bubble. So for all the people who already own homes and they're like super excited because they saw the value of their homes go up significantly during the pandemic, I hope you didn't get too excited because that was based on really nothing. It was based on the easy access to printed money from the Federal Reserve and the institutional investors buying up entire neighborhoods of single family homes, which is not a good thing, it's a bad thing. All of these things artificially inflated the value of these homes.
So now when the market turns, interest rates are higher, and all of a sudden people don't want to buy a house as much because they're going to pay a lot more in interest.
Yes.
So now when they're doing the flipping business, and remember when you're flipping a house, you have to buy it as low as possible and sell it as high as possible. Then now they're trying to screw over their own customers by lowballing them. But even with that, even with the data advantage, the housing market downturn made it unprofitable. So now they're stuck with all these houses and they can't sell them. And guys, my family's worked in real estate before. So I can tell you the number one problem when that happens is then their interest rate starts to pile up because they use borrowed money to buy all those houses. And they got that from investors. Now the investors are getting antsy because you're losing money and you're having to hold that asset as you're paying out more and more and more on debt and interest. So now that's a double whammy. So when they have to, so it's a hot potato. They got to get rid of it, okay? But to the investors of Redfin, I guarantee you pressured them into doing that business. So now you're probably yelling at them because they're losing money. But it's your fault. You asked them, you pressured them. They had a good business and you said, no, I want more. I want more. Now, why don't you just make money from selling the houses and screwing over your customers by gathering their data? And that CEO, I don't know him at all, obviously, personally. But come on, brother, like I said before, when you were making a profit, you had no moral qualms at all.
Of course.
And now all of a sudden that it's a hot potato you're trying to get rid of. Well, I was worried about what was happening to the customers.
Right, yes. I'm sure you were very worried, very concerned.
Right.
Sorry about that 22 million you lost this year.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.